What's going on, gamers? It's Village here from Beneath the Veil, and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to do a follow-up to our last video, which was an overview of all of the abilities of the basic neutral creeps. And a big thank you to Rob Marshall, who left a comment on the channel saying that he would like a follow-up on ancient abilities because he's an Enchantress player. So Rob, thank you so much for your comment, and this is for you. So today we're going to go over the 8 different ancient creeps that are currently available in the game. We are currently on patch 7.32, so please keep that in mind. If any new creeps have come out since then, we will do updates as things change. But yeah, today let's jump into all of these creeps. So first we're going to start with 2 of the least utilized creeps. So this one here is the ancient Frostbitten Golem. As you can see here, it has a time warp aura. So this is a passive ability where it's coming from a different era. The Frostbitten Golem has an innate control of time, speeding up the cooldowns of all nearby allies. So in a radius of 1200 around the creep, it reduces cooldowns by 10%. So this is particularly strong when you've got those cooldown based teams. So if you've got any Enigmas with Black Hole, any Faceless Voids with Chronosphere, any, even like a Tidehunter Ravage, any big teamfight ultimate, this is normally a decent pickup just to speed up those cooldowns. I should mention as well that with all of these creeps, Chen does require his shard to be able to dominate ancient creeps, and that's dependent on how many levels he's got in his ult. Will give him however many ancient creeps he can control at once. Enchantress has a level 20 talent, which allows her to enchant ancient creeps, and then Doom has a level 15 talent, which allows him to devour ancient creeps and gain their abilities as well. So with Time Warp Aura, it does a 10% cooldown reduction, worth thinking about on teams that are cooldown based. Just for those who aren't aware as well, the way that cooldown reduction is calculated, so it's a compounding effect. So first thing to take into consideration is if a hero has any talents that reduce their cooldowns. So what will happen is basically whatever your base cooldown is of the spell, any reductions through talents will be taken off first, then this Time Warp Aura is applied, and then after that any cooldown reduction items that are on the hero, so Octarine Core, or there's 2 or 3 neutral items that also give cooldown reduction. All of those percentages happen after this aura. So it sits in the middle between your base reductions through talents and then your reductions through items. And yeah, it just sits itself in the middle. So if you're looking to play around this sort of creep, then it's actually, you get more value out of not taking cooldown reduction talents and taking your other damage talents or whatever else you've got instead. But that's just something to keep in mind if you want to play with this sort of a creep. Next up, let's bring out the boss of the camp, which is the ancient Ice Shaman. So what he has is a Icefire bomb. So this is a unit target, which can affect either enemy units or buildings. It is dispellable, which is worth noting, but the Ice Shaman chucks a blue flame towards an enemy unit or building, dealing damage over time. So for 8 seconds, it will deal 50 damage per second to heroes, or it deals 25% of that damage to structures. So it will be dealing 12.5 per second for 8 seconds if you throw it on buildings, whereas it will deal 50 damage per second to a hero for 8 seconds. And keep in mind, as per our last video, all of these damage numbers are before reductions of magic resist. But yeah, so that will give you, before reductions, 400 damage on a hero or 100 damage on structures, because I don't believe structures have any magic damage resist. They do not, yeah, so you'll always get 100 damage off. Always worth noting is that sometimes just get a bit of guaranteed damage on is really good, unless you're playing against a Treant Protector, for example, who can heal structures. Otherwise, any damage you can get onto structures will always be permanent, unless it's the Ancient, which will regain health. So next up, let's go the Rumblehide and Thunderhide next. So the Rumblehide has a passive ability, which is your War Drum's aura. So the rhythm of the Thunderhide's heartbeat increases the attack speed and accuracy of nearby allies. In an aura of 1200 around the creep, it gives an attack speed bonus of 25 and an accuracy increase of 40%. Now, to understand what accuracy does, it's similar but not the exact same as True Strike. So what it will basically do is it will increase the chance that your attacks will negate the effects of evasion. So say, for example, a hero has 25% evasion. That means for every 100 attacks that are put on them, they will avoid 25 of them. Okay, so of that 25%, that is normally being missed, 40% of that will instead ignore that miss and be a hit instead, which is different to something like, so with an MKB, it grants each attack an 80% chance to pierce through evasion and deal 70 bonus magical damage. So the way that this works, since it's a pierce, is that 80% of the time it will go through no matter what. So if an evasion proc was meant to happen, it will instead ignore it. That works different to something like this, which says that every time it's meant to miss, it will then essentially roll to decide where 40% of the time it will hit instead. This also works when heroes are attacking uphill, so this can be good for sieging, for example, because ranged heroes do still have a miss chance of 25% attacking uphill. So this can help negate that and mean that they are doing more building damage in the same amount of time. But yeah, it's just worth knowing how that mechanic works. If you do have a team that are either ranged and need to fight uphill or are fighting into evasion heroes, this can help them sometimes pierce it, but it's not a hard counter per se. But yeah, and then if we jump along to the Thunderhide, so the Thunderhide has two abilities. So both of them are actives. The first one is called Slam, so it is a dispellable ability again, because there are some debuffs associated. So the Ancient Thunderhide slams his mammoth body against the ground. The shock damages nearby enemies and throws them off their footing. Heroes regain their balance more quickly. So in a 350 radius around the creep, it grants a 60% movement slow and a 60 attack slow for 4 seconds on creeps or 2 seconds on heroes, as well as dealing 250 magic damage, again before reductions. And that's on a 5.4, actually it shouldn't be 5.4, that's because I've got the, see this? That's why it's affecting it. So if I throw you all the way over there we go. So it's actually on a 6-second cooldown. So this can just be a decent ability, again, similar to some of the other creeps like the Hellbeast Smasher, active. Just throw it down the middle of a fight. You see he does a little ring around him to show you what the radius is. And that can just be a good way to mitigate some damage, get a little bit of damage out yourself, as well as a slow if they're trying to run away. And then his second ability is Frenzy. So again, this is dispellable because this is a buff for an ally, but the Ancient Thunderhide works an ally into a frenzy, causing his ally to have increased attack speed. So for 8 seconds, your ally that you cast it on will gain 75 attack speed. Things to note is that the Thunderhide can cast it on himself. You can see here, now he's got his attack speed increased by 75, or you can put this on your carry. So yeah, lots of ways to use this ability. It's really good just for pushing down lanes as well, because you can just basically make him frenzy himself and then he does a fair chunk of damage on his own. But yeah, just a really good little steroid ability. It's on a reasonably low cooldown. As you can see, it's got an 8 second cooldown and it's an 8 second duration, so you can basically spam it off of cooldown, and then in conjunction with the slam ability as well. Yeah, the Thunderhide can do a lot of damage really, really quickly. And then let's jump along to, I think I might leave the dragons till last. So let's go to the Ancient Rock Golem next. So the Ancient Rock Golem has a Weakening Aura, which is a passive aura. So the Rock Golem's imposing figure makes enemies more susceptible to physical damage. So this reduces armor by 2 in a radius of 1200 around the creep. This, in a very similar way to the Drake, which we'll touch on in a moment, is a very tempo-based creep. So with Weakening Aura, the thing that makes it strong is that it's got an armor reduction of 2, which means that against strength and agility based carries, this is going to be much more effective because, as I explained in my last video, the way the armor works is that for every 6 agility points a hero has, they get 1 point of armor, or for, if they buy armor items, then they get armor on top of that. So for intelligence and strength based heroes who are playing that carry role, they will typically not have a lot of armor and rely on things like an ally to get an Assault Cuirass, for example. That would give them then 5 armor points. A Weakening Aura would take 2 of those off, so you're effectively negating 40% of a effectiveness of an Assault Cuirass buff for, the cost of 1 Ancient Creep. This is something that can be really strong in the, sort of early to mid game when you can first get access to these sorts of creeps, and then you get diminishing returns because as heroes keep leveling up, they get more agility gain as a result, even if they're not an agility hero. So they will start to negate some of the effectiveness of this. In terms of being able to right click down a int or strength based carry early game, this can be surprisingly effective depending on the team that you have. Otherwise, you have the Ancient Granite Golem, which is a really, really strong aura, and the Granite aura increases the health capacity of nearby units by 15%. and a 1200 radius around him. So this is especially strong with Chen when he's got a creep army that he wants to buff up, because all health pools go up by 15%. It's the same for heroes as well, so strength heroes get even stronger. Any really fragile support or carry heroes that you might have will get an additional 15% of their HP pool on top of what they already have. So this is just, you know, a really good all-around creep for buffing up the effective HP pools of your entire team. Whenever this creep is available, I'll always pick it up at pretty much every single point of the game, because it's never not a good ability to have. And then yeah, so let's move along to the dragons. So first we have the Ancient Black Drake. So as I mentioned with the Rock Golem, the Black Drake also has a very sort of tempo based ability, and what this is a magic amplification aura. So it's a passive ability, and the Black Drake's gaze makes enemies more susceptible to spell damage. It doesn't actually say what the numbers are on the ability itself, but if I just spawn in a enemy Lena here to show you, so if I look at her, and stop her dying to creeps. So you will see here that the spell damage received is increased by 5%. So this is really important to think about in team lineups where you have a lot of spell damage going out. I would think about this more as not single instances of damage, but consecutive amounts of damage. So heroes like Pugna, like Skywrath Mage, like Silencer, where they do a lot of spell damage over time. That's where a magic amp aura can be really, really strong. If it's just single bursts of magic damage and then reasonably long cooldowns, you won't get as much value out of this. But it's something to think about, to play around with. 5% can often be the difference between a hero living or dying. So yeah, sometimes just that little bit in the early to mid game can be just enough to keep securing those kills and keep that snowball going. And then again, as you get later on into the game, heroes get more health, they get typically magic resist items as well if you're playing those lineups. So this does tend to fall off towards the late game, but it is something to think about nonetheless. So that is the Drake, and then the last one to go through today is the Ancient Black Dragon. So there's a couple of things to go over here. First of all, let's cover off one of the passes, which is a splash attack. So the Black Dragon's explosive attacks are felt by all nearby enemies. So it basically does a 100% splash and 250 range around the target that it's right-clicking. That's just good to know, just for ability to clear waves reasonably quickly. Not much to really talk about there. It's similar to like Sven's Cleave, for example. The other two to talk about the Dragonhide aura. So the Ancient Black Dragon's dreaded presence grants nearby allies additional armor. This bonus can stack with itself. So very similar to the rally ability from the Skeleton Warriors, which we covered in our last video from the Dark Troll Summoner. The Black Dragons, if you dominate multiple Black Dragons, like with Chen for example, these bonuses will stack. So you'll give 3 armor in an AoE of 1200 around the creep to all allies, and if you have 2, you'll be giving them 6. If you have managed to get 3 up, you'll have 9. So if you have a Chen or an Enchantress or Doom or any other hero that likes to build a Helm of the Overlord, then building up your cohort of Black Dragons can be really, really strong for buffing up the whole enemy, the whole team, and making it a lot harder for enemy team full of right clickers to click you down. The other ability is this Fireball. So as I covered in my initial Vision Masterclass that I did for the channel, Fireball can be used in lots of ways. It's a point target where it hurls a fire blast on the ground, igniting the area in a 300 radius for 10 seconds. Enemies caught in the fire will take 85 damage per second. So that's 85 damage per second before reductions. The burn intervals are in 0.5 second increments, so you're technically doing 42.5 damage per second before reductions. But as you'll see here, I'll just cast it on the ground just so you can see. The radius is very large. So you can see that there it's hitting this whole AoE here. This is really strong just for dumping down in a team fight, because it essentially denies an area to fight in, or the enemy team take a lot of damage. I've had games where I've thrown this down and the enemies just haven't respected the fact that it's down and they end up just dying. So really, really strong. Another thing to mention is that it doesn't explicitly stay in the spell itself, but having run the tests and doing research for this video, if you have multiple Ancient Black Dragons dominated and you throw all of your fireballs down in one spot, the damage will stack. So you will, it's not like other abilities where if you have AoEs down, it will basically look at the points where it's overlapping and then just do a single instance. With Fireball, you can put multiple fireballs down in the same spot and the effects will be cumulative, so that add together. Otherwise, typically the way that I use Fireball will be that I will deny multiple areas of space, but If you've got something like an Enigma who can pull a black hole off and then pull everybody into one spot, then dumping all your fireballs in one area and just doing as much damage as you possibly can is really, really strong. And yeah, besides that, that is everything for these creeps. If you have any questions, as always, please let us know in the comments below. Anything you'd like to see in future videos, please let us know as well. The team and I are continually putting lists together of things to go over. Besides that, I'll see you in the next video. Alright, have a good one.